She said, I need the blood. I need it. I'm a vampire. She stabbed him so many times she'd created a cavity, a hole in his back, about the size of a bread and butter plate. And she told the girl she was going to drink blood, and she actually was seen to put a face into the aperture she'd created in his back.
He was naked, he defecated, there was blood all up the wall of the boat shed, his head was back, and he was basically cut from ear to ear through his throat.
Childhood was a time of wonder and imagination, a time when the line between reality and fantasy was blurred. Vampires, those dark, immortal figures from late-night TV and faded paperbacks, were more than just monsters. They were mysterious, powerful, and strangely alluring. Some people watched in awe as they roamed through old horror films, captivating us with their timeless allure. But what happens when this fascination takes a hold of a young mind? When a child, drawn to the power and mystery of these creatures, begins to blur the lines between fiction and reality. This is the story of Tracy Wigington, a girl who, from a young age, became obsessed with the idea of becoming one of these. But for Tracy, it wasn't just a phase. It was a dark obsession that would eventually lead her to commit one of the most shocking crimes Australia has ever seen. Join me as we delve into the chilling case of the lesbian vampire killer and explore how a simple fascination with the supernatural spiraled into a real-life nightmare. On August 4th, 1965, Rhonda Hopkins gave birth to Tracy Averill. Shortly after, Rhonda divorced and felt unable to care for Tracy, so she placed her in the care of her wealthy adoptive parents, George and Averill Wigington. George and Averill lived in Rockhampton, Northern Australia, and although Tracy's life appeared privileged, she later revealed that her grandparents were highly controlling and physically abusive. She also disclosed that George had abused her from the age of 8 to 11. In 1981, at 15 years old, Tracy inherited about 75,000 Australian dollars, equivalent to over $300,000 today, after her grandparents passed away. But there were conflicts over Tracy's sexuality. Her mother couldn't accept the fact that she was a lesbian. This led her to move in with a family friend, Kay Wary. Accounts of Tracy's personality during this time differ greatly. Kay describes her as loving, artistic, and a devout Catholic, while others claim she exhibited strange behaviours, became aggressive, and was eventually expelled from school for molesting other students. By 1982, she'd cut off all her hair and at times began referring to herself as Bobby. Tracy completed a hospitality course at Rockhampton TAFE and later began working as a bouncer in a nightclub. This was where Tracy met a woman called Sunshine, and the pair soon became romantically involved, with Tracy wearing a studded wristband and collar with a lock, for which only Sunshine had the key. The pair committed to each other in a Hare Krishna wedding ceremony, after which the couple decided they wanted to have a baby. Tracy sought out a man in order to get pregnant, and in front of a group of friends, had sex with the club owner she worked for as a bouncer. She fell pregnant from this, but miscarried soon after. It was around this time that she abandoned her faith and became increasingly interested in witchcraft. Tracy then moved from Rockhampton to northwest Brisbane. Here she began to immerse herself in the occult and black magic. She became increasingly reclusive and started referring to herself as Fred. She had a black cloth bag which she used to carry tarot cards, candles, and animal bones. Tracy became an avid watcher of horror movies, repeatedly replaying scenes in which people were maimed or killed. As her obsession progressed, Tracy began to claim that she was a vampire who was very sensitive to sunlight. She could not stand religious imagery, and most sinister of all, needed to feed on animal or human blood. She reportedly survived eating only blood of pigs and goats, which she obtained from the local butcher shop. Brisbane, Queensland, a thriving city on the east coast of Australia, known for its warm sunshine, stunning parks and gardens, and home to a population of over 2 million people. It's a fashionable tourist destination and a bustling urban centre. However, in 1989, this vibrant city became the unlikely setting for one of the most chilling and unusual crimes ever committed. In a small suburb in the west end of Brisbane, it was early hours October 21st. This date marked the beginning of a nightmare. Brisbane housewife, Elaine Baldock, awoke in bed, reaching out for her husband, but found no sign of him. Edward Baldock, a 47-year-old road paver for the local council, was missing. The couple had recently celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. Edward, a devoted father of 5, often spent his days off drinking with friends, but was known for never staying out late. By 5 a.m, concerned and anxious, Elaine called the Brisbane police to report her husband missing. As dawn broke, a local rower, Stephen Kerrin, took to the Brisbane River, unknowingly about to uncover a grisly scene that would shock the entire city.
He was in a fetal position. There was blood all up the wall of the boat shed. His head was back and he was basically cut from ear to ear through his throat.
Police Chief Patrick Glancy is lead investigator assigned to the case, and he's one of the first on the scene. But what he sees on the morning of the 21st of October still remains vivid in his memory.
It's a very decent family at West End, and we feel very sad for them. He's a father of 5, and a dreadful thing to be taken from them at 47 years of age.
By October 1989, 24-year-old Tracy was in a relationship with a woman named Donna. They lived together in an apartment, decorated with graveyard images and a stolen headstone. Despite this relationship, Tracy began an affair with 20-year-old Lisa Paszynski, a mentally ill heroin addict with a history of self-harm. Lisa was drawn to Tracy's dark persona and would cut herself and let Tracy drink her blood. On October 20, 1989, after repeatedly watching a graphic horror movie scene, Tracy, Lisa, and another couple, Kim Jarvis and Tracy Waugh, went out drinking in Brisbane City. Edward Baldock had been enjoying his day off, drinking beer and playing darts at his regular pub, the Caledonian Club. Just after midnight, a drunken Baldock, extremely drunk, staggers into the street, and by this stage the girls had left the bar and began driving around the city. Tracy was searching for a victim. Wigington's car, driven by Paszynski, cruises by Edward. Tracy directed the girls to stop the car, and Tracy had convinced one of the girls to act as a prostitute to try to entice him into the vehicle. Kim Jarvis played a key role in trapping him, as Jarvis was far more attractive than the other girls. She enticed Edward into the car. Fatefully, Edward climbs into the back of the vehicle with Whittington, and soon after he passes out. Edward was now driven a short distance to the bank of the Brisbane River, where the girls parked in front of the sailing club. 3 of the females waited there, while Wigington took the victim around to the rear of the boat shed. Edward then dropped his clothes off and sat down with Wigington. She held his hand for a while. Fearing that even a drunk man would be too difficult to overpower by herself, Wigington returns to the car, calling on her lover Lisa Paszynski to help her. Paszynski also had her own knife, which was given to her by Jarvis. Paszynski was then ordered by Tracy to stick the knife in him, but on arrival, Paszynski froze and said she couldn't do it. She handed the knife to Wigington, who straight away stabbed Edward in the back, sending the knife all the way down to his spine. She then used her own knife and stabbed him in the back countless times. She stabbed him in the neck over and over, almost decapitating Edward. Tracy stabbed Edward 27 times, nearly severing his head. She then drank his blood while smoking a cigarette before washing off in the Brisbane River. Tracy later returned to the scene to search for a lost bank card but couldn't find it. The next morning, Edward's mutilated body was discovered. Tracy's credit card had actually been left in Edward's shoe. and this is what linked her to the crime, leading to her arrest. Within hours, the police arrest 24-year-old Tracy Wigington and bring her in for questioning. In Tracy's interview with police, 3 accomplices are implicated, and within 24 hours of the murder, all 4 women are charged with the crime. 15 months later, the media hardly notices when Tracy Wigington attends committal proceedings to determine if there's a sufficient case for the trial. Wigington accepts responsibility and is immediately sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Edward Baldock. In the meantime, only one of her co-defendants has been allowed bail, and all 3 insist they're innocent. On the 31st of January 1991, the trial of the other 3 women begins, and the story takes a sensational twist. Lisa Paszynski, Kim Jarvis, and Tracy Ward all stand accused of the murder of Edward Baldock. Their defense at the time of the murder was saying that they were all under the evil spell of Tracy the Vampire.
The court has been told that Tracy Wigington believed she was a vampire. She was involved in satanic worship, witchcraft, and blood drinking. Her co-accused, Lisa Paszynski, said she could not eat solid food. She had to feed on blood.
The trial's outcome hangs on whether they were bewitched by a lesbian vampire killer or just cold-blooded murderers like Wigington. Prosecutor now must prove to the judge that the decision to kill Edward was calculated and collaborative. The 3 girls claim they genuinely believed Tracy was a vampire. Chief Investigator Pat Clancy, whose team had interviewed all the defendants, is the star witness for the prosecution, and what the prosecution claims is a clear sign of premeditation. The group went to the nightclub armed with knives, that the evidence shows all 3 girls were complicit in the savage murder of an innocent man, but now the defense put their plan into action. The girls say they just couldn't help themselves. I think it's fair to say that the defense lawyers attempted to hold Wigington up as the ringleader, and that the other girls were simply brainwashed under her spell and too scared not to go along with her. The defense portray Wigington, now behind bars, as a domineering sadistic bully who wields extraordinary power over her female friends. Paszynski said that Wigington had some sort of strange inner power, that she can do strange things. She can make people disappear except their eyes. She can read my mind. The court was told that Paszynski had been admitted to hospital 82 times in the last 5 years. She'd overdosed on drugs and had tried to commit suicide. They said she was far from being a killer. 23-year-old Tracy Ward is the only one to be accompanied throughout the trial by her parents. She was petrified of Wigington and fallen under her mind control. The defense concluded that all 3 girls had shared Wigington's morbid interest in the occult and admitted that they used to spend hours watching horror movies together, but they claimed that that's just what young people do. It doesn't make them killers. On the 13th of February 1991, following a 14-day trial, the jury retired to consider the case of the alleged vampire killers. Finally, a verdict is reached. The jury took 2 days and found 2 of the women guilty with the murder. They found Lisa Paszynski guilty of murder and Kim Jarvis guilty of manslaughter. Lisa Paszynski receives a life sentence, and Kim Jarvis is found guilty of manslaughter, receiving 18 years in jail. But 23-year-old Tracy Ward is free, as there wasn't a lot of evidence against her. It seems that moments before his murder, Mr. Baldock may have inadvertently played a vital role in catching his killers. It all goes back to that key piece of evidence, Tracy Wigington's bank card that was found in his shoe. How did it get there? Edward by nature was a tidy, fastidious man. He must have seen in the semi-darkness that the bank card that he thought was his own was sitting on the ground, and he must have neatly placed it into his shoe. This act was the key to bringing his killers to justice. Kim Jarvis was then granted parole after serving just 5 years, while Lisa Paszynski, then aged 43, is also released on parole. And in 2012, a 46-year-old Tracy Wigington is herself released after serving 23 years behind bars. But while all now walk free, the women will forever be branded as the lesbian vampire killers. Please let me know in the comments section your thoughts on this case, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the like button. I have a lot more videos coming your way, so don't forget to hit the bell button so you don't miss any notifications. Stay safe and see you again soon.